Yes, sir. You can't. Oh, shit, sorry. Nice. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
You're welcome to the session. And that's the level session is all about language, literature, and literary traditions. But one second part coming up this session. And so we engage one scholars. Then we have Ade Ola Kondiwa Toye from University of Liverpool. We'll be talking about engaging with Nigerian university architecture in the literary works of Ikemeka Ike in English. Then we have Sima Jiboye from Howard University. Also looking at cultural orientation in the construction of identity in Nigeria, advocating discourses. And third presenter is Brother Adamu Gaba from the Bauchi State University, and also be looking at Hausa language in Nigerian people in different meanings. And the last but not the least is from Madonna University by name Grace Ikeshiku, who also looking at the social linguistic construction of Igbo names. So we must understand that this panel is all about language. It's all about literature and literary tradition. Joined together, it's all about humanities, and you know that there's no discipline we talk about that if humanity is taken off, then it's not complete. And so we want to see how these scholars sort of navigate between language, literature, and tradition from different perspectives. Different, particularly that the scholarship at this time is interdisciplinary. It's not all about one focus, one discipline, put that to be done. And so today, without wasting much of our time, I don't know, okay, that is Semajiboye is online already. And we have I think for that of the one Toye is seated here. So waiting for Rella, Mugaba and is online from Simon. And Chris Ikeshiku to expecting the two panelists. And so we're going to have panel. Each panel will have about 12 to 15 minutes maximum. 12 to 15 minutes maximum. Please, I need to keep the time because we have a lot of time. After the presentations, then we will have time for questions, not just questions, contributions, and submissions. So we have the floor. But before I will take it accordingly, there is now program here. So the first person is going to be Ade Folatomiwa Chole from the University of Liverpool, reading the short biography of the panelists. Ade Folatomiwa Chole is a PhD student at the University of Liverpool School of Architecture. He completed a bachelor's degree in architecture and a master's in environmental design at the University of Lagos. Adefola is a recipient of the 2020 Academic Prize for writing on African architectures and a 2021 Student Diversity Fellow of the Society of Architectural Historians. Our field research, which is in collaboration with the National Archives, London, focuses on tropical modernist architecture of Nigerian first universities and its roles in development and identity in independent Nigeria. Some of our works have been published in the Kumumo journals and the conversation in both in UK. And so she's going to take us on this topic. We want to see how to navigate architecture and literature and tradition. And so it's going to be a wonderful time. So everybody, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm making a presentation titled Engaging with Nigerian University Architecture in the Literary Works of Chukwemeka. And this is kind of like an experiment in the widest legal architecture, the architecture of Nigeria's first university and issues in the early 20th century. Next slide, please. Nigeria's first university was the Colonial University College Ibadan, established in 1930. The university was designed by famous British architects Maxwell Fry and James Brooke, and it was designed as a residential campus following the Oxford and Cambridge models. Subsequent universities were established within 2 years of Nigeria's independence in 1960. And they are University of Nigeria, Nsukka, University of Lagos, Ahmadu Bello University, and University of Data and University. They, just like the University at Ibadan, had the architectural style of tropical university that prioritized building designed to suit the tropical climate of Nigeria. Next slide, please. African literature gained international attention in the mid-20th century, and a significant example is with the critically acclaimed book Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, published in 1987. African and Nigerian literature have been studied within post-colonial works with focus on multiple Nigerian conflicting identities in colonial and post-colonial societies. Other scholars have moved beyond the identity question to consider how African fiction addresses and conceptualizes the idea of organization, independent of dominant Western perspective of traditional and modern. More current studies are focused on intersection between literature and architecture, scholars considering its ability to analyze the intangible atmospheres and moods in literary works that center buildings and spaces in their narratives. Next slide. So what can Nigerian fiction tell us about university architecture? By close reading literary texts by Nigerian authors which are set on university institutions that we know that they are based on existing institutions. We can investigate how Nigerian literary works engage with and critique the architecture of its university projects. And unlike institutional records in the government archives or university archives, literature can showcase how universities and their speciality was depicted in Nigerian popular culture. Likewise, in the absence of archival material on specific parts of Nigerian history, for example, the loss of a lot of documentation during the Civil War, literature can also try to help bridge that gap. We can therefore question how Nigerians engage in the architecture of first generation universities. How were they depicted? How were they challenged or imagined by Nigerian writers? Yes, I agree. In selecting suitable books for this study, I applied the following criteria. Firstly, the book had to have been written by Nigerians who lived, studied, or worked in first generation universities, either as students, staff, or even children of members of staff. Secondly, the story should be set in late colonial or early independence period. And lastly, they could be fictional or non-fictional, but they're largely set in a university campus. Next slide. Two books that meet this criteria are Tools for Supper and Naked Gods, written by Chukwuemeka. Tools for Supper is set in the fictional University of Southern Nigeria, following Amadi's time as a student in the country nearing independence. Protagonist Amadi has to navigate academic life and romantic relationships as the first environment ministry of his family. The Naked Gods, on the other hand, is set in the newly independent fictional Shogunai nation and explores administrative politics of a new university with a significant Anglo-American presence. The local members of staff, Dr. Okoro and Professor King, both in the American and British camp respectively, are featured in the later life way of who becomes the university's president to their vice chancellor. And both books discuss themes of urbanization in the university, especially at the end of the empire and some early years of independence. Next slide. Professor Chukwuemeka was a Nigerian writer and academic administrator. He completed his first degree at University College, now the University of Ibadan, and was the first Nigerian registrar at the University of Nigeria to publish in 1960. And his background is reflected in the both books. Tools for Supper is based on the university which he studied in between 1951 and 1959, and the themes of romance and the protagonist's romantic story a reflection of his personal experiences. PK was an Igbo man who married a Yoruba woman, but whom met at the University of Ibadan. And this is reflected in the story where the main character is in love with a person from another. Naked Gods, on the other hand, was received as a satirical representation of the early years of the University of Nigeria's Hospital administrative and teaching community. And this was because it served as a registrar at Usuka. Usuka at that time also had a significant number of American and British staff as expressed in the story. Its writings are largely satirical and largely based on real historical events, and according to me, books provide a human perspective to historical and contemporary issues in Nigeria. And just like its contemporaries like Achebe, uses proverbs and metaphors for the language as literary. Next slide. In both books, the writer constantly contrasts urban architecture with that of rural, either in terms of the characters or the location where the university sits. University education and proximity to modern architecture and modernization in general is treated as a sign of upward social mobility. So for Amadi Tools for Supper, being in an urban setting cemented his claim of privilege inherent as the first university student in his family. Also, in the Naked Gods, the appeal of bigger houses for senior staff is an incentive for seeking promotion. Amadi is a young man from a remote town venturing into a more urban and less conservative university town. However, we're first introduced to Amadi in the first chapters, we see and follow a naive young man who's not fully aware of nuances of organization and policies. Well, this gives us a fresh perspective of the obvious, the physical characteristics of elite universities. And we see this in the view of his views of great environment. He perceives his new home with fascination, and during his vacation to his own town after the first year at university, recall how he's all struck by the magnificent buildings. For example, it describes him as saying that the university town has quite supervised and had magnificent buildings like the university hospital and the government buildings. Buildings on the university campus were both handsome and modern. And this is similar to how the University at Ibadan was received in Nigeria after its completion. In his first decade, the Ibadan campus was praised for its beautiful architecture, but was criticized later in the 1950s for wasting capital on expensive buildings that were supposed to expand the The book, in various instances, creates a rapport between an inexperienced Amadi and an older student and very achiever to show us different perspectives regarding the university. Although Amadi perceives the university shy of airing his opinion, especially when they are brought to side of achievement. But despite the fact that his first impression was one of awe and fascination, he still notices some related things. And BK uses in the book, keeping this dialogue between Amadi, the new person, and Chima, the old student, to critique university buildings. Amadi touches on university architect's decision for the tower building. He highlights that the tower really stop the decision on the side rather than on the front, where it views from incoming track with the university's entrance. Initially, this is not taken seriously by Spirit Chima, but when it brings the tower, Chima agrees the offers his reservation, one which extended beyond what we can just see in the physical. Chima says, and I quote, what's the purpose of spending thousands of pounds for the skyscraper? This really functions to house standards. It's whenever we ask for better, we get told there is no money. So here, Chima isn't concerned with the architecture of the city, but the rationale behind giving to companies and investors' financial commitment to architecture over students' welfare. Next slide. Before Naked Gods paints a picture of welcoming new institution from scratch, one that is located in a rural town which had non-existential infrastructure. And this is a typical example of some of the first generation universities like the University of Super and Buffalo University, where their campuses, many urbanized spaces in their own right, are situated in largely rural towns. This therefore meant that beyond the construction of teaching facilities, campuses had to accommodate housing and amenities within their sites. And this expensive venture usually meant that university development was a cost-intensive long-term process. We therefore had to start either as an external temporary site like OAU, which began as Nevada, or temporary sites within the on-federal campus, as you can see in case of Ishika and Missouri, which now Shanghai University. And the book discusses this buildings, particularly staff housing, which were formerly fabricated low quality, provided until more comfortable staff housing to be detailed. Also, telephone lines and transportation were constructed in the campus structure. And the writer describes the growth of the campus with environment in Missouri, and I like the contrast with the hometown and other rural areas. Staff houses were described as being several 100% greater comfort than any person within 30 miles of which enjoy, with the exception of Israel and Next slide, please. Another luxurious residence with Vice Chancellor's house, a large building with 6-bedroom house included with the rest of the staff houses. The ground was accommodated through botanical garden, a non-technical that seems expensive considering that those surrounding a military are available. And the greater comfort and facilities was also described as a motivating factor for members of staff seeking to become the next university. University development, however, impacted changes in the town, and the significant change was the construction of the dual carriage from the updated university and the new city. And the writer describes this extensively at the end. The story sees it as the outcome of the university intending to make its transport route directly to the capital city, rather than making it an existing hometown. But regardless, the town still benefits from this decision as it enjoy the new route connection to the capital. Next slide. The drastic difference between the compound, campus, and other areas extended beyond this as to point the main factor of the impression of the social status. On listening to his own town, Dr. Okoro compared the living conditions of his parents' house and his home within the university and considered his own competing of the status. Dr. Okoro knew that everyone was expecting him to turn his father's mud hut into a modern cement walls and house. People also in the pastoral house that people disappointed to see him enter a house that really not expect to go to the And we see here that his exposure to standard of living at Shoga University also meant that Dr. Okoro was to repeat the same process of not only building a new house, but to develop a standalone on-site electricity and water supply similar to what was done at university. Next slide. The rivalry between Dr. Okoro and Professor King also took special dimensions. The attractive luxury of the Vice Chancellor's work, as I said, motivated the rivals. In addition, they all tried to design their houses and to navigate the neighborhoods to ensure that they monitor their neighbors. To be up to date on the movement of his rival, Dr. Okoro designed this garden with a comfortable furniture and specific paper plans that will shield in from all the transport and be able to monitor the movement of his projects. Next slide. Regarding students and staff interaction, in the book taught for soccer, students in Colonial University volunteered to clean the homes of many British staff and calmly expressed their dissatisfaction with the election procedure outside a registrar's home. They also limited formal and informal interaction with lecturers and considered risks and fair in their reading system. When the protagonist Amati was refused a resettlement by a particular professor during his English department, his friend Chima gives me a long story in the professor's Bible says to African students. He says, who ever heard of anyone visiting Professor Geoffrey to his house? Even students who used to cycle to his house and in their essays are not doing so, because to him, they may just as well be used platforms. So Chima dissuades Amadi from seeking reports to his family and expresses hope that independence will keep the university of the lecturers of Jersey. So unlike the former registrar, where students were beginning to go to his residence, students considered Professor Jeffrey's house and hostel space and informed other students not to venture to that side of the campus. Next one. Students and staff interaction in the related class took a different and more bold turn. Student body boldly demonstrated their concerns over unhealthy university politics and conflict services. And when official accused in administrative treason, students violently protected their displeasure in formal locations across the campus. In chapter 20, historic flag demonstrations originating in student areas and that escalate quickly in all directions, ending at staff and reports. This more direct and violent expression involved vandalization of property and is different from the student actions in the colonial university in 2000. One student unrest following satisfaction the university authority in his handling of funeral arrangements with one of the students. This was worsened by the different philosophy of death and funeral rites between African students and Western students. Unlike those in the colonial university, students did not placate the administration while driving their points to toy. Rather, they ignored formalities of getting an audience with senior staff. In one instance, they barged into the registrar's office and deliberately slammed doors upon their exits when they didn't get satisfactory results. Next one. In conclusion, the naivety of colonization in tools for supply is challenged by post-colonial realities in the world, where neocolonial and foreign interests form the basis of conflict. Also, proximity to higher education and its associated architectural representation affirm the character's views of climbing social adaptation with nation. And that's the student interaction with staff initially make colonial story was more raising a post-independence university. Student spaces and staff housing becoming sites of infiltrations and work positions.
Wow, thank you very much. Today for that on well for you, for that wonderful presentation, because Nisha at the onset I was wondering how should we do the presentation, the actual design and the author, that's Ike, and Chukwemeka Ike, who happen to be very renowned luminaries in the country of present memory now. Well, wondering, but in fact, she actually challenged me and slightly up with the presentation. So I actually love that. So thank you. I believe one of two members also might have a question for you, but we'll reserve that to the end of presentation. So now we're going to have Simon Module on the online and Grace Ikeshuku. And so we are going to the next panelist, and that's going to be Simon Ajiboye. Simon, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, okay, I'm here. Am I audible enough?
Yeah, yes. Very clear, very clear. You're welcome.
Yeah.
And so you'll be taking us on cultural orientation, construction of identity in Nigeria, educative discourses. And Simajiboye is from Bowen University. And so you have the floor, 50 minutes. Thank you.
All right, let me share my screen. Yeah, can you see my screen, please?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I'm Simeon Ajiboye, and this project is actually an AVH, Alexander von Humboldt Foundation supported or funded project. I'm actually in Germany currently, and it's one of the leg of my research that I'm conducting here. So I'm at the University of Augsburg in Germany, and I will be presenting on cultural orientations in the construction of identity in Nigeria, adjudicative discourses. So these are the structures of my talk. Conceptual Nigerian legal system, adjudicative discourses. Let me quickly go to the content of my discourse. Now, disputes, we know that it's actually an inevitable aspect of human interaction. Since we have disputes in human interaction, society also, they have devised means of settling or resolving disputes. So there are several ways through which disputes are actually settled. We have litigation, which is court-through system, and we have alternative dispute resolution, which is essentially a culturally oriented system. But in Nigerian society, there are basically two legal system operation that we have in place. We have conventional court system, and we have culturally inclined alternative dispute resolution. And this is actually the idea where I have my adjudicative discourses from. Number one, the ADR, which is alternative dispute resolution, is actually something that has to do with bringing the two disputants together or the warring party and find a middle ground is actually a kind of win-win situation. Like the Yoruba, we always say that you don't go to court and you expect us to still be friends. So it's actually an alternative way whereby that actually premise on peaceful coexistence, even despite the fact of conflict or dispute as the case may be. So one thing that has to do with the very first one, which is conventional, is actually very rigid and it's legally constrained. Contra the latter, which is AGL, which actually disorient to the principles of the rule of law, but seems acceptable to people in large measure because of its negotiability. So one of the cardinal principles of ADR is it involves negotiation. And that's actually what we really want to see today, how they negotiate, meaning how justice is actually negotiated and how identity are constructed, premise on cultural value and the place of culture in dispute resolution and construction of identity. So in adjudicative discourses, it's actually stemmed from institutionalized discourse. So adjudicative discourse or encounter is a particularized one. So in this case, we are talking about generalized and particularized discourses, but the adjudicative encounter is actually a kind of particularized, which is specific and is taken to be an activity type, talking about the notion of activity, the notion of activity type by Levinson. Then what is ADR? I think I've said one or two things about ADR. If you see the picture you have there, we have two people, and there's also going to be a mediator, which is going to be an impartial mediator that's going to sit to and guide the people, the warring party or the disputant into amicable resolution. So the disputant are involved in the resolution. So in case, so it is just going to guide them to reach the amicable compromise whereby all of them will go out of the disputes with a peaceful resolution. So let me, because of my time, we have several forms of ADR. We have two basic forms that have several legs. We have the binding and non-binding. We have negotiation, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, and collaborative law. But the one that is very peculiar and very that I'm interested in, as my data determines, is mediation, where we have mediator. And the mediator in this case, they are the legal luminary against what we have in traditional system, where we have elders or the king settling disputes. So even in the Nigerian legal system, ADR is actually now being encouraged before people will come to the rule of law. They usually ask them to go and settle the dispute with a legal luminary involved in their case. And a popular one that we know that is going on now is Justice Ashaolu. Most of us that are very conversant is actually an aspect of ADR, that is the justice cause. And there are several features of ADR. We have it disorient legal technicality and procedure. It involves negotiation, essentially negotiation, and it's less expensive. It is flexible in nature, very dynamic, and it's rooted in people's culture, and it brings harmonious, amicable resolution in these formats. So development of ADR in Nigeria, It has been long. In 1988, we have a particular act that was promulgated in order to institute it. In Lagos, we have a multi-door courthouse, and at first, we have very connected to ADR Center in Africa. But there is a particular new trend in Nigerian ADR, and that is where this university also, they are actually taking up this particular challenge to set up what we call law clinics. We have people that is very open to both the university community and the outsiders to come and negotiate and settle their different disputes. As I know of, in the southwestern Nigeria, which happen to be my focus, we only have three. We have at the University of Ibadan, we have at Olabisi Onabanjo University, and we have at Adekunle Ajasin University. It's not a course, but it's actually like a women law clinic. We have people, law clinic, we have people come from outside, and it's very open to everybody to have their case settled amicably. So there are several plethora of studies that have actually worked on identity, looking at it from the code of annihilation, looking at it from naming, communicative style, the lexical item, and the likes to construct identity. But there's something that they have failed to actually recognize, is to look at the co-construction of identity with resort to the cultural orientation, how people orient to culture in constructing their identity, even in a conflictual or argumentative discourse like adjudicative cancer. And that's actually where this particular study is actually looking at. The neglect of identity construction or construction of identity in ADR encounter by the aforementioned study is not only a concern in this study, but also participant devotion to culture in the construction of identity in ADR. Knowing the identity people are constructing will help the mediator to resolve their disputes, and that's actually the whole essence. So the central focus of this particular study is to look at what are the categories of participant cultural orientation in the construction of identity, and what are the mechanisms used, the pragmatic mechanisms used in constructing the identity. To tease out this particular objective, four theoretical orientation are used. We have Locher and Graham interpersonal pragmatics, we have social constructionist theory, the Levinson notion of activity type, and functionality theory of culture. I will take them maybe one by line. The interpersonal pragmatics is actually talking about the relational use of language, how people within interactional engagement use language to construct identity, to actually negotiate identity in this way. It's essentially of the use of language by the participants to have what we call membership categorization, which is actually identity in itself. So the social construction of social construction is actually one of the dynamic and interactive way whereby people engage in interactional engagement to construct their identity. It's talking about the flexibility, dynamism of people coming into an interactional space to negotiate meaning, intention, and their own identity. So rather than this stationary form of identity or existentialism kind of identity theory that is stationary, but it's talking about identity in talk and identity in interaction, not using name, not using nationality, not using what they call it, color to negotiate or to mark identity, but we are talking about talks, how people use talks to actually to construct group categorization. Then the notion of activity type here is actually taking identity mediation as an activity. So within an activities, people are actually constrained to say what to say. He's talking about allowable contributions. He's talking about constraints placed in a particular interactional event about what could be said and what not could be said. Talking about the process of inferential schemata in which people negotiate meaning. And all this will actually be helpful to tease out and to unearth these culturally oriented values that participants orient to in an interactional space to construct their identity. And the functionality theory of culture is talking about the cultural value used. I may not be able to go because of my time to tease out all these things. What are the cultural elements within the interactional space to construct identity? So in this case, this actually, the data set and the methodology for this, I have 21 tape hearing section and 30 documented cases in Nigerian 3 universities that I've actually mentioned between 2010 and 2017. So 21 tape hearing session, and the list of the time lag of the list of the tape hearing session is actually 1 hour, where the maximum time we have is about 7 to 8 hours for each of them. So it's actually a very large corpus when I transcribed it. And I use the recording to do this, taking notion of a very light Jefferson transaction notation, taking note of the conversational structure, such as interruption, silence, pause, repetition, overlapping, and turn taking among others to actually look at what construction of identity and how they are able to orient to culture. So in this case, those four theories are selected based on their relevance because they are able to deal with the experiences situated within and outside the conversational engagement with useful understanding of human interaction as the case may be. So essentially, and the reality of identity, essentially, this particular study is going to be a top-down approach. A top-down approach in pragmatic analysis has to do with categorization, exemplification, characterization, and the descriptiveness. So there's going to be categories upon categories, and these categories will be actually characterized and operationalized, and I'm going to exemplify them as the case may be. These are the type these are the types of the discourse that we have, the something that we have, the type of cases and the class of people involved in that particular case. So I'm looking at the cultural orientation and the identity construction. That this is actually the framework for the analysis. So before I will go into this, I will permit me to go into my data set. I want to see how some time. Let me go to my data set so that we can okay, can you see my data set now, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the excerpt one. Then I will take it a bit so that we know exactly what we are talking about. Now, this is a blend of Yoruba and whatever. I said before we begin, what do we do here when we receive any complaints? As part of our procedure is to write a letter out. Now, this is mediator talking. The M in my data is actually talking about mediator, while the H is the husband. The W is actually the wife of the woman. At the very first, 3 lines that we have there, we see the mediator actually telling us about the ideology of the ADR of that particular institution that we are calling the ADR or adjudicative encounter. So when we receive any complaint here, part of our procedure is to write out a letter. Now, what they are trying to say here, they are operating on the principle of impartiality. And that's actually what we have in this particular case. Talking about the principle of impartiality, which a mediator ought to orient to. So I'm not talking about the ideology because of my time. Let me quickly go to this one. This is the man now talking. After the woman had actually reported the man based on of negligence of duty, constructing a derelict identity for the man. This is the defense of the man. He said, we met in the year 2000, line 17 now. All the bold line in CA is actually the focus, the central focus of analysis. That's the rule in CA, conversational analysis. He said, we have been together for 16 years. I noticed some unpleasant behaviors since then, which I am not comfortable with, that I have been complaining about, which I've been complaining about with the hope that she would change. Now, we have seen the premise upon which this man is actually talking, constructing a kind of recalcitrant identity about the behavior of the woman based on what the attitude, exhibited attitude or perceived exhibited attitude of stubbornness. Now, but that's actually not what we are talking about in this case. We have seen the identity constructed, and then said, I told her then that after this place, we are not moving anywhere because of your perception. You are like a man. Now, this is where we have the culture that the man is actually oriented to her. In African culture, we are actually, especially in Yoruba culture, we all know that we have patriarchal ideology. So the man here is oriented to patriarchal ideology. So you are like a man. It's an assertion telling the woman that, oh, you are behaving like a man, and I am a man, and you are like a man. And it is not possible that I should submit to you in this life. I would rather die. I am the one mounting you, inasmuch as I told you to sit down and you insisted on your own idea. you can be living alone. I will not pack along with you from this place because I wouldn't want to kill you. Now, obviously, the man is actually orienting. He invoked the patriarchal ideology in this case to construct a kind of macho identity in this particular one. And when you know that he has actually oriented to the patriarchal ideology of Yoruba sector and of African society, especially Yoruba society, to construct a kind of identity for himself. That is what we call macho identity. And this kind of orientation that the man orient to is what we call conservative cultural orientation. It's very conservative, non-negotiated, that this is my word, this is my cultural right. And in as much as a woman, you are not actually going to fit into that particular cultural right, you won't be able what? I won't want to kill you. We can't go on in this particular case. So in this particular excerpt as we have it, the man actually orient to the cultural tradition of patriarchal system to construct a macho identity for himself, which is actually part of the gender identity as we have in this particular case. Permit me to go to the second one that we have in this particular one. This one is actually what I call a Libra, and I will go back to my chart to explain because of our time. He said, like someone who have lost his freedom. This is the woman talking. Asking my experience are too numerous to explain. Is it the clothes that I bought? I'm actually at line 11. Please pay attention to my bold emphasis in this particular case. That I bought that he turned into pieces, or those that he destroyed, or those that he destroyed. He will have destroyed this face long, long ago. Daddy, I believe all you said and I accepted, but I am not going to be, how am I going to be sure? Ine shishi, Yoruba ni ki joni lẹ́ẹ̀mejì. Yoruba believe that one beating twice shy. That's actually a translation in the reason that the caterpillar fire does not burn a person twice. He said, that's actually what we have said. Then even the Bible says that affliction shall not arise the second time. You could see the woman here orienting to the cultural script or cultural element of caution. That look, this man has done this before, and I cannot allow myself to be dealt with again. And in order to foreground that, he evoked Yoruba saying, Yoruba ideology of what? Look, one beating twice shy. A caterpillar fire does not burn a man, does not burn a person twice. It has happened. In this case, for me to live with him, I have to exercise caution. Because of our time, let me quickly go to my chart again so that I will not be able to.
Please not wrap up. We're out of time.
Okay. All right. Now, in this case, in institutionalized discourse, where we have, this is actually the chart that I have here, and I will talk to the chart. We have particularized institutional discourse. Now, in this particularized institutional discourse, the participant usually orient to culture to create two broad categories of cultural orientation. We have conservative traditional cultural orientation, which is not negotiated, and the other one is liberal cultural orientation, which is negotiated, and we have not compromising or opting out of discourse cultural orientation, which is also non-negotiated. In order for this for the first one to be foregrounded, we have male supremacy, male sexual supremacy, child ownership supremacy as cultural elements, and we have the cultural script of fatherhood, marked female supportive position, and patience to actually foreground liberal cultural orientation, and we have disrespect, non-submission, disobedience, impatience, and caution to foreground non-compromising cultural orientation. These three subcategories of cultural orientation that actually evident in my paper actually we have two identity that are very that are there. We have foregrounded gender identity and foregrounded social identity, and this foregrounded gender identity and social identity actually lead to macho identity, accountability of complementarists. We have recalcitrant batteries, fetish derelict, and non-conformist strategy. How are these identity constructed? We have culturalization of discursive action in radical disposition, mild liberal disposition, supportive disposition, as the case may be. This is actually what I have here in this case. Let me quickly conclude. Let me conclude. Now, the paper argues that cultural reality have significant role to play in dispute resolution. Hence, for many For meaningful, apology for that, for meaningful resolution of disputes in any society, participant cultural ability should be taken for consideration. We should know when we have conflicts, development is actually practically impossible. Hence, people's cultural orientation need to be put into place, especially in adjudicative discourse, to actually what? To resolve disputes so as to what? To have peaceful coexistence and eventual development in any society. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's Agiboye for that one presentation. Take time, but another time. So thank you very much, and I want to believe also, well, we had the time to see view as it on. So after presentations we have there, we can come together to discuss and contribute to the paper after the next person has stated. So thank you very much once again. So quickly we move on to the next presenter is also online. I think so. Please, Grace, who are you there? Grace Ikeshiko, are you there from Mandela University? Are you unmute yourself?
Okay, she's there. She's there.
Okay.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, yeah, you are welcome. So you are next center, and for all the audience, President Ikeshiko is a lecturer in the Department of English Language at the Madonna University, Okija campus in Anambra State, Nigeria. She is a lover of research, and her research areas include social linguistics, phonetics, and phonology, and at the same time applied linguistics. And so this evening, she will be taking us on a paper titled Social Linguistic Construction of Igbo Names. So please, Grace, you have the floor now, 50 minutes. Please, let's try and keep to time so that we can ask a question at the end of the day. Thank you. Time start now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. I'm Grace Ikechukwu, as I've already been introduced, and my topic is sociolinguistic construction of Igbo names. Okay. Under my background, I have it that in Africa, including Igbo, that naming is associated with belief, ideology, and events in person's life. African names are not mere labels. They are pregnant with meanings, meaning that African names are connotative. Igbo people do not give names to their children randomly. The names they give have both social, historical, religious, and philosophical connotations. Personal names provide important components of African cultural identities. Personal names in Igbo have rich cultural undertone. They are reflections of both pleasant and unpleasant situations, in addition to resounding historical reflections. Okay. Having seen the background of the topic, now we go to the problem, the statement of the problem. Naming among the Igbo people is contextualized based on their sociocultural, historical, and ideological actions. Now, it is hypothesized that external factors such as civilization, Christianity, and urbanization are highly influencing the choice and nature of Igbo names people presently bear, thereby making a sharp shift from the long-held values and ideologies behind naming among Igbo people. Yes, there are assumptions that Igbo people are now shifting from the normal values attached to names as a result of some external factors such as Christianity, urbanization, and civilization. Premised on this paper now tries to examine the nature of names, given to people as a true reflection of family history and experience at the period of birth. So, based on this problem now, the research has the objective of identifying some Igbo first names and analyzing their sociological meaning. Okay, we are going to see some Igbo names, looking at their sociological meanings. Then the paper will be guided by 2 research questions to do this. Number 1 of the research question is, what type of names do Igbo people of Anambra and Imo bear before the age of civilization? Anambra and Imo are the scope of my study. We shall see it later. Then the second research question is, what type of name do they bear now in the face of civilization and modern influences? Do they still, the name they bear, they give to their children then and the one they give now, do they still have some resemblances, or are they completely different from what they used to have then and now? Okay, now coming to the scope of the study, I've said it, that the study is limited to Igbo personal names alone among Anambra and Imo people. Now, coming to the Anambra is within Awka and Owerri metropolis of Imo State. In Anambra, the researcher collected the data from Awka metropolis, while in Imo, the researcher also collected the data from Owerri metropolis. Now, in this scope, 15 names each from Awka and Owerri, making it a total names of 100, were collected to see how civilization, Christianity, and other external factors of the now, that is the modern period, has influenced the choice and nature of names Igbo people give their children. Okay. Going further into the methodology, the research adopts a qualitative methodological approach to data collection and analysis, using unstructured interview and participatory observation to ask parents and the bearers of such names to obtain more insight into the meaning and the motivation behind the names. Now, some of the names, sorry, I do not capture this in my PowerPoint. Some of the names are under, we have some names under war, which include Nwogu. Nwogu means child of war. Agamelu means what death has done. Then Agebunam, death should not kill me. These are names that are pertaining to war. They are circumstances behind the birth of the child. That's people that were born during the period of war. Then there are others, like name that depicts death as a result of death occurrence within the period the child was born or is born. Then we have names like Onwa Seze. Onwa Seze means death does not mind king. He doesn't look at anybody, doesn't respect, he's a respecter of nobody, even the king. Then Amake Zonwu. Amake Zonwu simply means no matter how you avoid death, death must surely come. Then again, under death, we have Agbapulonwu. Agbapulonwu means you can't run away from death. It is inevitable. Everybody must meet it. Everybody must die someday, sometime. Then some other circumstances, the circumstances can be pleasant or unpleasant. For example, when it's expected that in Igbo land, every woman after marriage is expected to give birth within or at the end of 9 months. And when things do not actualize this way, the woman will be waiting for a child. And in this period of waiting, she will be, casting her faith in God. that would take me back to bringing to our notice that Igbo people, as one of their values and ideologies, is belief in God, the supreme God, who they call Chukwu, okay? The supreme God, the Almighty, and they also have belief in other minor gods, whom they refer to as Chi or other deities, okay? But nowadays, both Chi and Chukwu are now interchangeably used. We now see people answering names like Chukwudi, there is God, and then Chidi, meaning there is still God. But this God, instead of no longer the Chi of the deity, the minor gods, but still the supreme God, the Almighty. Now, going by this, there are still some other names like names for Thanksgiving. Maybe somebody receives a favor from God. They can give their children names like Chiemela, God has done it. Okay, Chukwuemeka, God has done it. They are similar in meaning. Okay, Som Kene Chukwu, join me and thank God or praise God. Okay, now these names depict is part of the reflections of African belief, because they believe in cultural values of their people, like I have in the introduction. They have their cultural underpinnings and also other things which now come together to make up the identity of the Igbo people, which are reflecting in their names. Okay, moving away from the methodology and this little analysis, the study can be of significance to Igbo people to know more about the nature of names they give to their children, because it will serve as a quick reminder to the so-called modernists among Ndi Igbo. Ndi Igbo means the Igbo people. It will give them the chance to reflect on the values of names with Igbo ideology and overall world view. Now, the problem lies in the here that it is true that they still give their children names based on the belief in the supreme God, which is one of the ideologies, that there is God Almighty. But the coloration in the name is making it look as if they are shifting from the value of the name itself. For example, a name like Chiemela, for example, or Chiemelie. Chiemelie means God has overcome. God has overcome. Instead of giving the child the name and calling it the way it is for the meaning to be obvious, our people from Oka and Owerri metropolis would like to shorten it, like Emelie or Meme. Okay, by so doing, it will lose the value of it. The entire value will be lost. Let's take a look at another name from Imo, which is Ike Dinachi. Yes, Ike Dinachi. From my inquiries from the mother that calls the child, the son, Kedin. So I asked her, what's the meaning of this Kedin? He said it's Ike Dinachi. Ike Dinachi. You see, Ike Dinachi is a name that proves the Igbo people's belief in God, in the supreme God. But the shortening and the coloration has made it to lose its value entirely. Okay? And another name like Nwamaka or Ukamaka. Ukamaka too is a name that has been influenced from Nwamaka to Ukamaka as a result of Christianity. Now, they will still go ahead to shorten or give a lot of coloration to this name. Instead of calling Ukamaka or Chiamaka or Nwamaka, you hear them calling Kame, okay, Maki, things like that. So the thing is really making the value and identity to be watered. Okay, going to the theoretical framework that guides this study, the research adopted William Labouve's sociolinguistic theory. In this theory, Labouve upholds that names reflect the history, beliefs, values, and culture of a given community. The name a child bears reflects the belief system, the values, the culture of a given community. The theory examines several ways names are chosen and used, and that is in line with what I have earlier explained, that names could be chosen based on some circumstances behind the birth of a child, which could be war, which could be death, when there are a series of deaths in a family and a child is born. A name like Ozemena may be given to the child. Ozemena means let it not happen again. So these are the things. Okay. Under the findings, I'm concluding now. From the data, it was observed that Igbo people of Anambra and Imo metropolis still bear names that vividly reflect the family history in their bid to preserve the identity of Igbo. However, this is where the problem lies. It was observed that some external factors.
Are you there? Are you there, Grace?
It's not internet connection. No, it's not internet connection.
Do in order to preserve and get our culture and identity back. The researchers said that the onomastics can be included in the scheme of work of students in both primary and post-primary schools, as this will help them have a strong foundation of the meaning of Igbo names. Okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Oh. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I'm done, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Grace. We really appreciate your contribution, your presentation, insightful, wonderful. Teaching us about people names and the transition from the norms and how it has been watered down and whatnot. So I believe I have one or two questions for you. I'll give you one of the further also one or two questions. Please, I know that the fourth person is online. We're still expecting to at Afukaba.
Ma, please stop sharing your screen.
Please, you can play it down there. Close your screen. Are you there, Grace? Please stop sharing.
Yes, I did. Okay.
Screen, please.
All right.
Okay, see there. We're expecting Florida and Mugaba.
No, we already have Grace, Nkichuku, and Simon. Only the two for now.
Okay, we see the stuff of talking and promises to the art.
Okay.
So, well, thank you very much. We have listened to the presentations from, I think, from that Tonua and Samajiwe, and also Grace. And so, looking at the presentations, I think whether any of us have questions or contributions, this you can have now, or I should my phone. Any person of that? Okay, well, let me start. One of the first presenter who are actually giving us through the use of architecture, examining the work of Chukwemeka Ike, using two texts as tools in analyzing that, and we need to understand the importance, the connection between the building, the architectural design of the post-colonial era, and that how that have actually affected and kind of have impacts depending on the development of the people, the influence, if I may get it right. And not only that, that even you got to understand also that even the life of Chukwemeka Ike actually reflects in his narratives, in his novels. And so we could see here that trying to tell us that the structure, the buildings, any other institutions actually have effect on the people. It's the kind of a ladder, whereby people climb. If that person, the vice chancellor, the registrar, the wonderful buildings, and so let me also move on. So if architecture, right? So initially I was thinking, what's the connection between architecture and literature, literary works? And so after we see that that would be a major step in that. But my own area that actually maybe I need into clarification. Is it only the structure, the buildings, the design, all these first generation universities? When we look at their contemporary time, look at the modern era. Our students are the young ones motivated to climb the social ladder based on what they see they are not designing on campuses. Because I could remember one of our students in the university, her first year, she performed vocally. And being a college university where you have wonderful structures. And after the show, said, what happened? Said, I wasted my first year, I was looking at buildings and structures and flowers. So he was kind of just looking at flowers, not minding and what else also, why someone why? He put some big cars and we look at your something to say the Yahoo boys who are in town today. Instead of fighting big cars, living in those houses, so many factors actually we to be, contributing factors to people's desire to climb or higher on the social ladder. But I see you will narrow it down to the building destruction. So what are all those factors that actually affect the youth, people of nowadays, that will help them to climb that social ladder? Don't share more light from that.
Thank you very much. I think because my work is really focused during that period, 15 classes. So generally, whatever classes, looking beyond the fact that looking beyond the what kind of future tell us about so thank you, social, that seems like it thing. And many folks also at the written that time talk about getting a job, working in the industry or since start attack to find social. But definitely that's changed decades after contemporary Nigeria where it's not truly better, it's not still that's we will only go to make it as in Nigeria. Also considering at that time, university basics were still new. It wasn't free or federal university. We were not yet federal universities that tuition was free there. It still was expensive. Select free was not free. So now you can't compare to now where the other universities having to is not and actually
So thank you very much for that. So actually, it's not only the structure now, they are now being motivated by so many factors. So that's why I say the relevance of the paper when I presented that look is beyond the architectural design. There are other factors looking beyond the building. Go beyond the building. Some factors are actually, if you can go, that person has made it, then I can make it. And so that is what I think the relevance of that. And looking at that particular period is actually a wonderful thank you very much. Please, the several people here, thank you. I think
Sam Ajiboye, are you still there? Okay, yes.
Yes, thank you. Please, thank you. So please, in few minutes, you actually take us through the issue of the law perspective. Yeah, on view of identification, certain disputes, and issue of identity construction, and personally, I look at that, and I got in your conclusion because understand that for us to have a meaningful resolution of disputes, cultural affinity actually should be put in place. Cultural affinity. And when we look at the situation in Africa, in Nigeria, so let's talk about Africa, there is this kind of influence, people that you know. So in settling, disputes, in settling issues, the family at home, and the issue of power tussle. I am the commissioner of this and minister of this position. Actually, power actually plays part in communication in the Nigerian system, in the African system. And so please, I want to just check one light. That because number one, every person actually construct his identity anyway. So it's not only in Europe, or come across somebody today who actually kind of behave in the public, is building his own identity. And so when you talk of constructing identity, how can we reconstruct our identity, our orientation when it comes to identification, when it comes to influence, politicians? So, because in Africa, we have so many people who have invested money, and at the end of the day, nothing is done because they're in power and have influenced the judiciary. Yeah, so and the masses are suffering. And so please, what can you say about the issue of political power, politician influencing education in the system? Please, 3 minutes. You shed more light on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can see several aspects to your questions, and then I will take it from the let me say from the using the pyramid now, from the general to the specific. Now, talking about the politicians and how they influence adjudication or the outcome of outcome of the court of law. This study does not really actually capture that. Now, what we are talking about in this case, that is actually litigation. That's what we are talking about, courtroom system, where influences could come up in that particular case. And it's so saddening that even at that particular point, identity is also being constructed, but just in a very, very confined environment. But the focus of this particular study is essentially on where people gather together, not in where it's not a function of where I say, this is my judgment. In fact, the second leg of this particular study is how do they now construct justice, which I've actually presented somewhere in Italy about 2 weeks ago. Now, in this case now, identity construction or the construction, there's a difference between identity construction and construction of identity. Now, identity construction is a bit essentialism theory, but we are talking about how people construct, how identity is constructed in discourse as against the previous way people people talk about identity. What I'm actually doing here is what we call pragmatic identities, where you talk, I talk. And in this case, identity is not stable. It's not static. Identity is flexible. It's both what we call a priori and an emergent phenomenon. Are you getting me now? When we are discussing, when we are negotiating, what we call it, when we are in dispute resolution conflict, what this study is trying to do is that the way people orient to culture goes a long way to settle disputes. I'm still coming to that particular one. Anyway, it's actually African problem where influences on cultures are done. But in this particular study, what I'm actually looking at, what are those cultural values that people orient to in a very subtle manner in order to pinpoint their identity, and what are those cultures? And the lawyers that are actually in the legal, the mediator who are lawyers, they need to pay, they need to pay attention to those constructed orientations to those cultural orientation if they really want to have meaningful resolution. Most of the cases, let me say that most of the cases in adjudicative encounter, which is alternative dispute resolution, most of them, they don't even resolve them eventually. And one of the problems is that they don't pay attention to this nitty-gritty. When somebody is actually held that I am a man and I must be a man, and the mediator is not orienting to that identity, obviously, the resolution may be impossible. That's one. But going back to the influence, the politician influence in litigation or in the courtroom system, once the politician, they've subjected themselves to mediation, not courtroom system, now there must be a shift of ground. I may not be able to mention them because of the ethics of people of dignity who are involved, and they were able to resolve their crisis. And that is one of the things that we must know, that mediator must be impartial if resolution will be achieved. We have some dignitaries among my data set that they have to shift their ground, because we are talking about negotiation. And the mediator actually was not able to, they couldn't buy him over, because we are talking about something that will affect the society thereafter. But that is not to say that eventually they may say, okay, I'm not involved in the resolution, and they will not eventually go to the law court. But when they get to the law court, what the mediator have done at the level of adjudication, that is resolution of dispute, definitely will be taken into account. But that is not to say that justice will also be achieved. It's a problem that you have raised. It's actually a problem on that particular larger society. And that's the problem we are talking about in this case. But my focus of my study is, what are those nitty-gritty? What are the cultural elements that will help lawyers, legal luminaries to resolve crises in any argumentative discourse? I don't know if I've actually been able to answer your questions.
Yes, thank you very much. That's a submission and it's formulated, knowing that in our discourses, identities are actually constructed. The way we present issues, the way we discuss issue, and these are actually constructed. So I actually appreciate that. So thank you very much. And we'll let you know also when we have any other conclusion on the floor here. And so this our next one goes to Grace. The big I see here. Yeah, but how we can hear those people also and we can respond. Then we will Grace are able to take us through names, especially Igbo names, using two states, Imo and Imo and Anambra, if I'm not mistaken. Sample from Oka using about 100 names. But supposedly you didn't give us any of the names to see from our slide, and I know you apologize for that. But my only area of concern is to mention because issue of name is not a new field in research. Many researchers have done work, which I usually work on names, Igbo names, Yoruba names, and the meaning. And I know in our society here, in African society, names are not just given. Names, even down to the current side, names are not just given. And when it comes to name, there's so many things attached to that. And I remember also you mentioned the of she, which have been the deity. I'm not an Igbo person, but I know a little of Igbo names. Yeah, and of she, and then Shuku, and my understanding what is or where is that point of transition from that she to Shuku? Because today we have so many names. Shuku, Emeri Shuku, Munashi, we need so many Emeka Shikudi. So many people they have to do with she, and the members of people will say, oh, my own is not she, but my own is Shuku. She is God. Yes, now, and it's a number of arguments. And so please, Grace, when it comes to the issue of names, giving of names, where is that point of transition? Or what, can we be able to demarcate it? Can we be able to consult? I mean, these are traditional names. These are modern names. Because I remember I'm a Yoruba man. He doesn't always say, oh, Ogun did this and that. Ogun Dada, Ogun Shino. Ogun there is representing the god of iron. So no. The mother parents said no, yes, Dada, or they will go and change it. So each of she is it like that also, each of she and Shuku, is it like that? So can you please shed more light on that? Please, issue of changing name from tradition to the modern form.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Can you hear me?
Yes, quickly.
Okay. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. The issue of Chukwu, who is the supreme being, and Chi, who is believed to be a minor god, sometimes referred to as deity. Okay. In giving names in Igbo tradition, in the past, they do believe that Chukwu, who is the supreme being, is the all-knowing, while the Chi, Chi, Chi is a smaller god that is servant to the Almighty God, the Chukwu. Now, in the giving of the names, like I gave some instances like Chukwebuka, God is great. Okay, a traditionalist will see it as a typical Igbo name depicting African culture, mentioning that Chukwu. Okay, but nowadays, as a result of the influence of colonization and Christianity, so many people are now tending towards answering or using that Chukwu. Okay, but in reality, Chukwu and Chi, in terms of context, are the same. Okay, but in terms of usage, they are not. Because the traditionalists will always believe that Chi is that they are small gods, which the traditionalists, there's people that belong to African traditional religion, uphold their Chi, the one they usually have the shrines where they worship it or them. But the Chukwu is the one that is being upheld mostly by Christians in this present era. Despite the fact that some of the names these same Christians give to their children, like Chiemela, is still tinted from that Chi, which is referred to as a minor god. Okay, so I can say that they differ. They are the same they are different in terms of context and usage. I don't know if I've been able to.
Okay, I want to come in that on that about time. I have people here who have just 1 minute or 2 minutes to contribute to that.
Okay.
Please do it quickly and please.
My name is George. I have
Can you hear her, please?
Yes, I can, sir.
my name is Joy. I have questions for both your speaker and then for Grace. Now, concerning the spending, you mentioned something of spending on users, especially people who criticize these first generational universities and the architecture. So I want to kind of look at this first. Can you say that the buildings were intentional? Thus, the architecture was intentional to attract people to higher education, not just climbing up social status, so that they can get educated, not just having just the secondary school graduates secondary school education, but to move higher, not just the social status, but the educational status. I want to ask that question. Then for Grace, I'm looking at the naming. You see that Igbo people, my son name is Eke, and I know someone who's answering AK, not Chukwu. Now, name
that name is have meaning, African names have meaning, but name is also a form of identification. If you say aka, you see several people. In fact, there's a particular point, someone is answering both my middle name, my first name, and my surname, and we are both from Imo State. So people modifying their names to shorten it is a form to identify that this is me, this is you. So I'm kind of asking, yes, it might be short in meaning, but it can also identify who a person is. I have several people who are answering the There are many answering the So if I decide to say, okay, let me remove the truth and call myself AK, it still does not change the fact that my name is Kechu. But just for me to be correctly identified, not to mistaking me for another. So I think I want to get more clarification of that, and then also.
Thank you very much. You don't have much time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ogemer. I have questions for the first speaker and then Grace. Now, my question for the presenter on architecture. I want to ask this question because in 2003, Adichie published an essay, Tiny Wonder, in a magazine, a US magazine, Speak Easy. Now, in that magazine, we see the essay was written in narrative form. It's not in the usual essay type that we know. It was written in narrative form, so it's like a story. Now, in that story, we see someone who just returned from overseas and is welcomed by certain displeasure, certain discomfort, beginning with a taxi in a decrepit state, then followed by a narration of buildings. You have to give a narrative description of buildings. So I was expecting to see some form of references to the cultural significance that this building holds in these narratives. Take, for instance, the senile decay of the father of this this person who came from overseas. The depiction of the decay to reflect the state of the building. So I'm asking what cultural identity, what reflection does these buildings that you are trying to reflect in your record, what do they stand for? Is it in a pejorative sense, or is it in a good sense? So I can't really picture it, unlike what we see in
It's not 4 minutes. The thing will be shut down automatically by the team. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, definitely. They were involved. They actually put me on something. So it's not statement and for education, so it was more of we come to see the education, and I think the education is going to be because being among the whole colonial revolution, they have to be the top standard. Also considering that colonial university was built expensive ventures to the others to come to attract studying and staying in that society at that same level, at least as prior to. And thank you for your question. And said also I don't have a background in the future.
So
Really took a better work with just
great. Quickly, 30 seconds, please. 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you for your question. And my answer to that question is, I don't agree with you, my dear sister, because when you say that someone answering Eke Chukwu, and when you remove Eke Chukwu from there, you answer only Eke. My worry is that answering Eke alone does not make the name complete. Now, looking at the names that depicts the market days in Igbo land, we have Eke, Orie, Afandunkwo. Someone bearing a name like Ekemma, Eke, and Mma. Mma means beauty. If you say only Eke, it is just the Eke day, as in that market day. Then you
sorry,
when you
10 seconds. It is shorter than 10 seconds. It is shorter than 10 seconds. So sorry.
Well, my argument is that I don't agree with my sister, because Eke alone, removing the Chukwu, does not give the name a complete meaning. Someone who answers like Ekechukwu or Osueke and Eke can never be the same. It doesn't have the same meaning.
Go to show the next 5 seconds.